this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and this is a tutorial on setters or set methods in Java, sometimes known as mutators. And we're also going to look at the this keyword a little bit. So I'm in Eclipse and I've got my main program already set up here, and I'm going to create a class up here which I'll call frog, just to give it a name. And I'll give frog a string name and an int age. And we've seen in previous tutorials how to create get methods. So I'm going to give it a get name, which returns the name, and I'm going to give it a get age, which returns the age, like this. And you'll notice that I've declared these public, and we've not gone into that explicitly yet, but basically if you type public in front of your methods, you won't go wrong. So just stick that public keyword in there. And I'm going to create a frog object now. So I'll create a variable called frog1, and I'll set it equal to a new frog. So I've got my frog object. And previously what I've been doing is this. I've been saying frog1.name equals, let's call him Bertie, and frog1.age equals 1, let's say. And then later on I can access this data using the get method. So I could say frog1.getName like that. And if I run that, it's going to say Bertie. So now the idea is that to try to hide away these variables from outside the class. So here we're using the frog class, but we're accessing the variables directly, and that means that if you use this class, you have to know what internal variables it's got, and that's undesirable, and it does complicate things in more complex situations than this. So what we want is, like we've got get methods, we want to have set methods that allow you to set that data, and then all you have to know is what methods the frog class has. You don't have to worry about its internal variables. So let's create a method here that it doesn't return anything, and it's called setName, and it accepts one parameter of type string, which I'll call new name. And what I'll do with this method is I'll simply set the instance variable name equal to new name, and that's a setter. That's what a setter is, because now instead of saying frog1.name equals Bertie, I can say frog1.setName and pass it the value Bertie, like that. And I've done here the same thing as this. It's really important though not to confuse these two, because of course here I'm setting an instance variable with the equals sign, whereas here I'm calling a method. So here I'm actually making some code run, but it just so happens that what all the code does is to take the parameter that I pass it and assign it to the instance variable name, and that's why it's called setName, of course. And I could also define a set age, so public void set age int age, and I can say, actually I'll call it new age, because otherwise I'll have two ages, new age. I could call it like so age equals new age. These are just arbitrary choices of names. I could call it the age, or other age, or other name, whatever I like. I just decided to call them new name, new age, and I can use that down here. So I can say frog1.set age, set it to 1. So now I've avoided referring to the instance variables in another class, in my app class here, and instead I'm just working with frog using its methods, its set methods and its get methods, and I could use any other methods that it happened to have. So I've encapsulated the data. So this is called encapsulation, because you're hiding away the kind of instance data here. And to enforce that, if you want to stop, because at the moment I could still type that if I wanted to, I can still access the variables directly, but if I just put the keyword private in front of them like this, and you'll see the errors coming up. So now I can no longer access them directly outside of the class, but inside the class it's no problem, and that's what private does. So you could always bung private in there to enforce encapsulation, to hide these variables away. And one more thing I want to show you here, maybe a couple more things actually. Well, see here I've given the parameter a different name to the instance variable because I didn't want to have two names in the same scope. So if I call this name, now between these curly brackets, in other words in this scope, to use a technical language, I've got two names. I could access this, the instance name, and there's this, the local variable name. And if you just use like name like that, if I just use that without any kind of prefix or anything, it means the one that's declared closest to it basically, which is this one. So local variables or parameters, they mask the kind of instance variables if they have the same name. But if I want to actually refer to the instance variable, it's very simple. I just prefix it with this dot. This dot name means this name up here. It means the instance variable, the one that belongs to the object or the class, if you like. And if I just use name by itself, like here, name by itself means the kind of local variable or the argument or parameter is this in this case. So by saying this dot name equals name, I'm setting this dot name, which is up here, equal to name, which is here. So it's actually pretty simple, really. If you use name by itself, it means this one, and this dot name means the instance variable. It's pretty simple. And I could do the same with age here. I could change this to age, and then to disambiguate, because you obviously can't have age equals age. That would just be setting this variable equal to itself. So I need to say this dot age equals age. And if you wonder what this is doesn't really matter at this stage, to be honest, but what it is just a kind of reference to the object that you're in. So here I've got frog1. This refers to a particular frog, a particular object, and I'm calling methods using frog1. And within the actual object itself, you can use this to refer to the same thing. This refers to the object itself. So it's basically the same as frog1, or if I had frog2, it'd be the same as frog2 whenever this ran within the context of the frog2 object. But don't worry about that. The really important thing is to get used to this pattern, because this is a really important pattern for setters, set methods. You have like typically public void set something, and then a type, and then something, and then inside the method you say this dot something equals something, and just type that out a few times with different parameters, and it'll sort of gradually sink in your head, and you'll get used to just typing out, public void set age brackets int age, this dot age equals age. It just kind of rattles off your tongue, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, beginners often make the mistake of using this all over the place. I think even on some university courses they tell you to do that, but it's not necessary. If I had, for example, a public void set info, and that took like a name and age like this, if I wanted to, I've got the option here. I could call obviously I can work with name and age directly, or I could also do set name and set age like that. So what I want to point out is that here you see here I'm accessing the name instance variable directly. I don't need this prefix because there's no ambiguity within this scope between these two brackets. There's no parameter here. Within these two brackets, the only visible variable is this name here, because variables are limited to the brackets that they're declared kind of in, or these parameters are limited to the scope of the brackets just after them, the curly brackets here. So between these two, there is only one name, and that's this instance variable here, and the scope of this is these two brackets here, the class ones. So bottom line, here you don't need any kind of this, because there's only one name, and it's this one. And similarly, when you call methods from within other methods, so this is a method and I'm calling another method set name, you don't need to say this dot. You can, if you want, type that, but it's completely superfluous. You don't need it, and you only need this pretty much 99% of the time. It's only called for when you've got ambiguity like that. You've got two variables with the same name and the same scope, and one's an instance variable, and you want to pick out the instance variable. So that's enough for this tutorial, I think, and in the next tutorial we will look at constructors. So join me again for that one, and if you're watching on YouTube, do click the subscribe button, and you can find this code on caveofprogramming.com, which is all one word. So I'll catch you next time, and until then, happy coding.